Da-dum. The harmony.
What a
is
beautiful
there.
harmony. Yeah,
We're
no,
getting. We could have been a just
barbershop duet.
A barbershop duet. We got two vocal parts. You take it or you leave it.
Are you a tenor? Are you?
I was a baritone.
Baritone. It's gonna be a baritone duet.
Yeah, it's gonna be two baritones. Someone's gonna have to fake either being a bass or being a tenor at one point in our.
It's gonna be rough. Either way, it's hard for the baritones to go super low. Hard for the baritones to go super high. We're
almost not needed.
Good thing we're doing a podcast where we don't have to sing much. Isn't that right?
Right.
Welcome everybody here. What's the name of our podcast, Eric?
Yeah, welcome back everybody to the Grand Line Tourist, a One Piece podcast where we go through One Piece chapter by chapter, starting from the beginning with two very distinct people, me, myself, and I being one of them, and the other person being Jacob. But for I am your Grand Line Tourist tour guide. I think this is what we're going to say. It's a mouthful, my title. But just call me the tour guide. Because that's what I'm here to do. Guide. I'm here to guide Jacob through because Jacob, my man Jacob here, is actually our Grand Line Tourist.
Grand Line Tourist.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Yeah,
I will be exploring not quite the Grand Line today, as you've been pointing out to me. We're not quite at the point of the story where Luffy is on the Grand Line. He's in the East Blue Ocean, East Blue Sea.
Yeah, East Blue Sea. Yeah, there's the 4 distinct seas in this world. East Blue is one of them.
All right, and so we're still at the East Blue Sea, and we are on chapter 3. So East Blue Sea, chapter 3. I like it. You mind taking us through what happens in this chapter so far today, Eric?
Yeah, so if this is your first time listening to us, just to let you know, we are on chapter 3, meaning that there's an episode for chapter 2 and chapter 1. So definitely go back, check those out. If you're curious about what we're about, definitely do that. Again, we are a podcast meant for you to kind of go through the chapters with us. So if you haven't done that for chapter 3, take a moment right now, go back, read chapter 3, and then come back and listen to us. We'll be fun. I promise. And you'll have a lot of fun reading it, and you won't be lost. Because, we're not going to do a full-length panel by panel. That's not our thing.
Exactly.
In fact, I'm just going to tell you right now just a quick little summary of what happened in chapter 3, which is titled, I'm pulling up the title, Enter Zoro, Pirate Hunter. Ooh. Now, if you're reading the manga, you'll notice that it says Zolo or Zoro. If you're watching the anime, they even pronounce it Zoro. It's because the L and the R sound in Japanese, they make the same. So it's a little like lost in translation thing, but the manga forever is going to call him Zolo. Right? Zolo's going to keep coming up, but it's really Zoro if you want to call it. Yeah, up to you. Zolo. Yeah. Yeah, it's great. So, just a brief little summary about what happens in the chapter. We pick back up with Luffy and Kobe finding their way to this naval base island where the demonic pirate hunter Zoro is being kept imprisoned, is what the rumors around this section of East Blue is saying. Luffy is super interested in recruiting this guy for whatever it is, but Luffy always keeps stating, I want him, but he has to be a good guy. Who knows what that means at this point? I mean, Luffy seems like a very good person, so maybe he has a good eye for good people. They get to this island and they find out that, yeah, they're afraid of Zoro, but they're also very afraid of the captain of this navy who's in charge of this specific naval base. More so than it seems than Zoro himself. They're really afraid of him. They go actually to the naval base where Luffy is like, hey, Kobe, this is where we say bye. You want to be a Navy, just walk up in there, you get to be a Navy boy. I'm going to go see if Zoro's around. Lo and behold, Zoro is around. He's in the yard. He is being punished. He is being, essentially crucified, right, Jacob? He's like...
Oh, yeah, no, you really get some, Jesus imagery here, but,
Yes.
You're like...
Yeah, so eventually you find out that he is being punished, but this punishment is that if he lasts there crucified in the middle of this naval yard for about a month, then he'll get to leave unpunished because he'll get to leave with his life essentially and all his record clean, I guess. So that's what he's been promised.
And in the Navy, and the in particular the lead Navy captain's son, Helmepo,
yes,
is not too intent on keeping that promise, as we'll learn in this chapter.
Right, and we also find out how Zoro ended up there in the first place. We'll meet Helmepo, who is kind of like the jerkwad, our very first jerkwad, and honestly, our very first introduction into the Navy, which I think speaks volume about the rest of the themes in One Piece overall as we continue pushing forward. Yeah, that's chapter
that was
3.
a mouthful, but we got it. We got it all in there.
Yeah.
What part of this chapter do you think we should dive into first?
Yes, I think because we're already talking about him, let's just kind of tack on to Helmepo. Let's talk about Helmepo just a little bit, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, I want to ask you.
Some
this
weird
is
hair.
You're the tourist. What do you think?
No, I mean, he's definitely seems to be a character that's designed to just be unlikable. Almost I think from the way he looks in itself. I don't know what kind of vibes I'm getting, but I just don't really want to look at him a long time. He's got this weird hair, this kind of longer face.
Yeah.
Whatever his face is doing at any moment, it's just not pleasurable in the frozen frame by frames you get in the comic. He gets a particular moment that just is kind of soul crushing that he does. Is there's a character who is trying to bring some nice rice balls to Zoro. Just this little girl trying to, I don't know if she knows about his 30 days of imprisonment, exactly how long, but she's bringing him some food because it's out of the goodness of her heart, and Helmepo proceeds to taste them and crush them into the ground, stating something along the lines of like, look, the ants like them at least, or something ridiculous like that.
Yeah, it's because the little girl, being a little girl, she didn't season her rice balls with salt, which is, I guess, a typical thing that happens over there. It's supposed she seasoned it with sugar because she loves sugar. She's a child.
Yeah. No,
yeah.
And so it's just
he also
not good in my book.
And just to kind of add on top of that, we're talking about like the movie trope, right? The movie trope of Save the Cat is just a trope that the people use in movies to kind of establish the good guy in a story. And the way they do that is they typically make him save a cat. Like, he physically saves a cat. You're like, oh, this person, the main character, is a good person. Helmepo does the opposite of that, and so far the opposite of it, because he actually throws this little girl. He personally, physically doesn't do it. He has one of his father's like Navy minions toss this little girl over the wall, like throws her over.
So you got save the cat, you got throw the little girl, it seems.
Right. And then throw the little girl makes you a butt. Yes, it makes him a butt. And that's what he is. He's a butt. He's a spoiled butt abusing power. And that's what he is. He's kind of like a walking embodiment of like abuse of power. Like he's that fear. They're ruling by fear, and this whole town feels it, and they're afraid of him, even though he's a little weenie like we're establishing right now.
And it's kind of funny, you were mentioning the idea of saving the cat, right? This character doesn't do it, but in the way almost sets up, I think, Zoro's save the cat moment.
Yeah.
Because Zoro then proceeds to, tell Luffy, like, pick those dirty rice balls up off the ground. I'm just gonna and feed them to me, shove them in my mouth, because I'm gonna eat them. Because he heard the little girl, like he heard her how sad she was when the rice balls that she had made were like basically ruined, and he wants to make sure that he looks into Luffy's eyes and says, tell her I ate all of it,
yeah,
I loved it, and so that is like, whoa, like, I mean, that is going the miles to like, make someone else happy in a way that just,
yeah,
warms the cockles of your heart a little bit.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Maybe grosses you out too. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, that's who Homelopo is, and I'm giving him a little attention because I think he's interesting. I think he's kind of an interesting version of what we're gonna see, because Helmepo is Helmepo, which is where he's bad, and his name is so fun to say. I mean, the dude is so bad that when he walks through town, he makes people bow. Like the townspeople need to line up and bow to him, and he says like the cartoonish thing of like bow lower, which is great. Like, oh, okay, this guy is an idiot, and he deserves to get punished.
Yeah.
So you actually touched a little bit about my Shonen Spotlight of the week, which is that I actually wanted to talk a little bit about the concept of Nakama and Crewmate that Luffy keeps referencing. Nakama is the term they use in the anime a lot, and I know it's the term that it's like a Japanese term that references translated roughly to crewmate, like comrade and stuff like that. But I think it's better, more equatable to like brother in arms sort of deal, right? That relationship you build with somebody who you've fought and shed blood for, and like whose life is on the line. Like, that's kind of the term for it. In this chapter, we get Luffy saying a lot, like we were saying earlier. He says a lot of like, I want him, but I need to see if he's a good guy. You know, like he sounds powerful, which is like checkmark for me. Because Luffy is still, he's a little kid in a sense where he's like, I like strong people, like he likes robots, he likes these things. But also a good criteria for him is that he wants to make sure Zoro's a good guy. And I think, like you were saying earlier, Jacob, like this chapter kind of goes out of its way to explain and to show that Zoro's a good person, right?
It's really cool. It takes not only like you're right, like there is Luffy's desires are both very childish, but kind of coming back from what we learned about Shanks, this captain that kind of started to flip, I think, Luffy's envisionment of what it means to be a pirate. It's not just how much, can you punch, or how, what's your crazy ability, right? Are you really a demonic pirate hunter? Like, it's definitely in there. It's definitely on Luffy's checklist. You gotta, have some notoriety or something interesting about you. But this good guy bit, that actually might be more important. And that's really, after that moment, that's when, I don't remember quite how Luffy phrases it, but I think it's something along the lines of like, now you're going to be on my crew. You know what I mean? It's like, he just shifts his mindset from like, I'm not sure, to like, oh no, I've seen what like you did for that little girl. Like, you're a good guy,
Yeah,
and it's a cool,
just to
cool requirement for him to have.
Just to kind of talk a little bit more on that, like the moment in the chapter where Luffy flips, like Jacob's talking about, is the moment where he finds out, one, that Helmepo has no intention of keeping his promise of like, hey, stay a month and I'll release you. No harm.
Yeah, what a weird challenge. If you can survive starvation for 30 days, I'll let you free.
Because Luffy also finds out from the little girl who tries to give Zoro a rice ball. He finds out that she was actually saved by Zoro because lo and behold, Homelopo has stupid dogs that attack little girls for fun, and Zoro like messed up the dogs because why you probably shouldn't let dogs do that, and that's why he's being
the
punished.
townspeople. He's being a good guy,
right? And Zoro's just kind of walking through being a good guy and stuff like this, and I think that establishment on top of like for Luffy to hear that Zoro saved the little girl from that being punished, and not even like, I think what's impressed Luffy more is that like Zoro's being punished, but he's not fighting the punishment. He's taking it like an honest person, right? He's taking it. He has every intention of doing it fairly, but Helmepo has no regard of doing that. And I think that's really what turns Luffy to like, well, to end the chapter in a cool way, which is landing a really big punch on Helmepo, which is really funny. But also just kind of like at the end of the chapter, he goes, "Hey, Kobe, this guy's joining my crew." Which I think is really cool and brings back to his idea of Nakama, because he's like, this is my guy. Yeah,
And an interesting thing I wanted to kind of probe you a little bit more on was, do you have something like we've been talking about Luffy? You gotta, maybe you have to do something that proves you're a good guy in kind of like the traditional like doing something nice for somebody sort of way, as well as have some characteristic about you that might make you good for his crew. Do you have something that you look for in other people when you like trying to figure out whether you consider them to be a good person? Like, you meet in a group of people, some of the people are new, and you're like, sizing everybody up, and you're like, that person did the thing. Like, they're a good guy. Like, I know they're a good guy.
Yeah. It's so weird for you to mention that. I wish I could put my finger on it, but I do have a certain set of criteria in my head that I kind of go through as a check mark. I think, I kind of listen to them to see how well they are engaged with talking to me. Oh, and like being genuine, I think is a big measure for me. Like, I can kind of tell if someone is genuinely interested in the conversation I'm having with them. If I feel like they're not, but they're not genuinely engaged, but they like keep going anyways, I think that's a big red flag to me, where I'm like, I don't know what this is, but I don't like it.
Yeah, like, I don't want to have conversations where I just go through the motions,
Right.
Like, that's just silly. Like, what are we doing here,
And, like, I like people who kind of, like, give their focus and everything. But essentially, I do know, like, good people, usually for me, a good measure for me is, like, how they treat, like, waiters and wait staff, how they treat service workers, how they kind of hold themselves in public, like, it's not like they're trying to impress people, but they're also not trying to impose themselves on people. I mean, those are the things that I kind of look at in like friends and partners and stuff like that too. So, I mean,
now if you want to be a part of Eric's crew, you know what you got to
Yes. Also, I mean, helping a little girl from like mangy dogs and like handling your punishment is also a good sign for me too. I would say.
I ate dirty rice balls off the floor, Eric. You're not going to be impressed. You're just going to be like,
Yeah.
okay, Jacob's a weird guy.
Yeah, man. The other topic I actually wanted to chat a bit about was the idea of perception in the world of One Piece, right? We talked about it a little bit when we talked about the wanted posters and how the wanted posters and the bounties on people's head is like a perception of their strength. But today I really want to talk about like the shades of gray that this world lives in, which is like, you know, the whole trope of like for westerns of like the white hat cowboys are good, the good guys usually, and black hat cowboys are the bad guys. Like that's how you always know in a western who's good and who's bad. You can say the same thing too usually about like when you think of the Navy or you think of the Marines, you probably think of like good guys, and that's what Kobe wanted to be. He wants to be part of the good guys, but we've already seen that pirates aren't necessarily bad.
Yeah, no, we had the kind of the first inversion of that earlier with the mountain bandits and how Captain Shanks was able to, you know, protect Luffy from them, right? And now we're kind of having it in the other way where like we expect the Navy to be able to, you know, help the downtrodden, and they definitely seem to be more like enslaving people, you know?
Right.
Enslaving the people that were trying to help the downtrodden. In this case, you know, Zoro was doing his best to help this young girl not get attacked by a dog. So, it's interesting because it actually plays off our perceptions of what the Navy and pirates are a little bit.
Yeah,
you know? Like,
I
you
think
know,
so.
we're going into this with, you know, I mean, I think the best you can think of pirates in general is, a fun group of miscreants, you know, like they're not like, you never think like, those are the do-gooders in society. And maybe like One Piece, I think kind of like punches you with like, well, maybe they are a bit more in that regards, you know, than you might initially think, or, you know, they're definitely, you wouldn't like completely distance them from that idea. And the Navy is definitely almost, they're becoming definitely not that. They're not the people that are helping society at all. If anything, making it like a slave society. It's weird.
They're like abusing their powers, like I've said before, and everything, and just like it's injustice is what they're doing, right? Like they're supposed to be the symbol of justice, but how do you stop when they're supposed to be justice and they're being unjust? How do you fight back to that? And then eventually, I guess what One Piece is trying to say is like, well, when you're a pirate, you can, because
it's like maybe that's where it makes a little bit more sense. That the way you described it there made me think of a word like a rebel, you know, like someone that's a little bit of part of the uprising. But in this case, the pirates are not quite so like organized about it, maybe, but like they're the rebels of wherever they happen to be. Almost is kind of maybe the vibe I'm getting right now with the way you phrased it. You know,
they're not
gonna stand by and let this injustice just go on. They're gonna see it and they're gonna do something about it.
And what you just said there leads into my other thing, my other topic about perception, which is that Zoro, before we actually meet him in this chapter, this is the first time we meet him, right? Like Zoro has been talked about in chapter 2, and then they keep talking about him now. They call him the demonic like pirate hunter is the term they keep using. He's a demon. Like he's cold-blooded. All he does is hunt pirates for money and all these things. Again, that's a perception that the world is making about this man, and we're learning slowly, like peeling away an onion in this chapter, that like he doesn't seem to be that. He's a tough guy, obviously, but he doesn't seem to be that demon person. Why would this demon person that we so call eat the rice balls out of the dirt just to spare the feelings of a small child? Yeah. It's obvious that there's shades of gray in this world, and that like things aren't exactly what they are, and Zoro's proving that fact, not only to us as readers, but also to Luffy, who, as we'll learn, Luffy becomes kind of like our moral compass of the whole show, like of the whole story. Like if Luffy likes somebody for a reason. He defends the people he defends for a reason, and he fights the people he fights for a reason, right? Because like we were saying before, he's very like gut instincts. He's very instinctual, I guess is the term. Like he goes with his gut most of the time.
Yeah.
Which is why he punches Helmepo.
It's inspiring in a way. Yeah, no. Oh, and you know what? Oh, I really I don't know if it's too early, but I do kind of want to show you my favorite panel, especially because you sort of actually said it right there.
Oh, well, we'll come back to it. So don't.
Oh, okay. No. Sorry.
Yes, we'll go to our panel battle.
Spoilers for my favorite panel. Maybe it involves something to do with Helmepo and his face not being as well off as it should.
Yes. Before we get there, I do want to do my small little segment, which is, One Piece Cat's jokes. Let's talk about some of the jokes, some of our favorite jokes in this chapter. Mine, I will just to start because it's my segment. So, my favorite part, I think my favorite joke so far in the chapter was, the pure Looney Tunes, section when they're eating in the diner. When they're eating in the diner and Luffy mentions, "Oh, let's go find Zoro," and then like the whole bar reacts, right? They all like fall over in their chairs. Like, it's Looney Tunes, man. It's like a gigantic overreaction to something. My favorite though is that the joke doesn't stop there. It goes one step further. It gets heightened when Kobe mentions the captain or mentions the Navy. Then they explode even bigger in the audience, in the bar, which I think is great. It's such a fun little bit.
Yeah, no, and it's like it's humor being used in a really intelligent way because it's the start of what you were saying, which is the theme that like, oh, it's not the miscreant that's locked away that they're afraid of. It's actually more Captain Morgan, this leader of the Navy that they're afraid of.
Yeah.
So, not it's like intelligent humor used for very good effect, I'd say.
Yeah, and then I think my last one, I think this is just such a funny little dialogue thing, which was Luffy in the beginning of the chapter is very impressed with Kobe because the first thing he says like, "Wow, Kobe, you got us to where we were supposed to go."
Oh yeah, no, if you weren't gonna mention another one, I was gonna mention this, right? And like Kobe then is saying that like that's like the first thing you need to know if you're gonna be traveling the seas or if you're gonna be navigating about as a pirate. Like how are you gonna get anything done, Luffy?
Yeah, I love his like that's like the bare minimum you need to sail. And then Luffy's response, I think, was my favorite part of the joke. Is like he was like, "You need to find like a navigator." He's like, "Yeah, that's what I'll do, but let's eat."
Oh yeah, that's pretty good. And then okay, it does remind me. I think the food place they go to is titled Food Foo or something in the book.
So
like
good.
It's just like, this is the place that serves food.
Yes.
Luffy's going to be happy there.
Yeah, and that's all I got this chapter for.
Oh, yeah,
I mean,
no.
there's tons of stuff for like, yeah.
No, I think that's a good point, because this isn't the longest of chapters, and I already spoiled at least a little bit of what mine's going to look like. If you want to open it up, Eric, you'll see my favorite panel.
So we're officially in the panel battle.
Yes, we are going to proceed to the panel battle, and duck and dodge. Weave.
Yeah, that was also swords. I don't know if you guys heard because of Zoro uses
Like
swords.
yeah.
No.
All
right,
but
I'm gonna
if you want to, Eric, you can go ahead and take a peek and describe to our readers to our tourists what they see.
Okay. Is there a specific panel or like the whole page?
It's gonna be the top panel.
The top panel. Okay, this is
it's like the top half.
This is a half-page panel, and it's a beautiful action panel with the aftermath of Luffy's. It looks like a gigantic punch. Man, Oda's so good at just showing you the impact, but it's Luffy landing the first punch, like a big punch on Helmepo, who we've learned is like he's like his papa's golden boy, so you shouldn't touch him because if you touch him, you'll die. Like the captain's gonna kill you. Luffy doesn't care in this panel. Obviously, he lands a gorgeous hit on him. It's the action lines are so cool that his straw hat's flying, right? Like that's how big of an impact this is. His Helmepo is actually like 3D moving into our like out of the page because he's falling backwards at this hit, bleeding, blood's coming out of his mouth. I think that's a Navy officer saying "ah" in the back. It's so good. But this is right after Luffy finds out from Helmepo's mouth that he has no intention of keeping his promise to Zoro, that he was gonna kill him in 3 days regardless, right?
And and I think you pointed out pretty much everything that I love about this panel. I think. Except one thing that is almost like a little bit related maybe to... I almost want to say it's a joke. I don't know how intentional this is. Luffy appears to be using a regular punch, though he is quite powerful and has like his Gum pistol is super elastic punch, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so am thinking that like Helmepo is not even worth the effort to do a big punch. You don't need a big punch to take Helmepo down. You just do... it's not. This is by no means a weak punch, but like, just a solid thwunk will do, and Helmepo is going to go down. And you already mentioned that hat that's floating above his head. It's really funny, and also this is another example of little details following through. You see the hat coming off in that panel, that big half page panel, and then after that, Luffy's standing without his hat because it fell off. You can notice that sort of stuff.
Oh wow!
I don't know why I continue to be impressed with this stuff. It's actually they have a job for it in movies. I think where somebody is just making sure that the if someone picks up something or moves something, that it continues to be moved in the scene, or that if something was in an environment, it stays in the environment. I don't know why in comic in the manga form I continue to be impressed with how well done it is.
Because he doesn't need to do it, right? Like it's also one of those things like they don't necessarily have to do that. Like that's a small detail.
Like the hat could have easily gone back on his head, or even if it just magically went back on his head. I'm impressed that every time I look for something that would make me think someone don't worry about it. The hat got back on his head somehow. I'll notice a panel with someone reaching over to pick up the hat is what it seems like. I'm becoming more amazed. Like the continuity of the action in One Piece is to a level of detail I did not expect in a manga of this look and vibe.
Nice. I guess it's my turn to share my panel.
Oh yeah.
I'm gonna upload it right now.
You're not gonna win this panel battle.
Oh my goodness! I don't think it's up to us.
Oh, maybe you did. No. I'm already impressed by what I see on this panel. I don't know which one's yours though. You have to let me know.
Do you have? I'm sure you have a guess, but it's the second panel. The second panel.
Oh, the second panel. Oh man, I think I'm okay. We'll have to say. So the second panel. You know what? I'm bad at counting because we're reading right to left. So the second panel is the top left in this instance, right?
Yes.
Okay, so I'll go ahead and describe. This is a, not a very detailed background panel. I would say the background's mostly white. We have Luffy standing in the right side of the panel, just a little bit of shading underneath him, and we have Roronoa Zolo on his crucifix, tied, just looking at Luffy across from him, and they're talking. We have "You still here?" I think that's Zolo saying that.
Yeah.
Better not let Helmepo's father catch you. And then we have look. And so I really like just the use of negative space, especially compared to all these other panels. When you just have it just stands out on the page, really.
It makes it feel epic, like a meeting of two people who are destined to meet each other, sort of deal, right?
Yeah.
Like they kind of do it
there's
also
nothing else that matters in that panel.
Right. It's kind of they also we're talking about it kind of romantically, but it's a trope we use in romance movies. Romance animes also have the same thing, right? When the two lovers kind of meet each other. These two guys aren't lovers in the sense of romantic love. I think they're lovers in the sense of friends, the love and the camaraderie. I feel like that's what he's saying. He's foreshadowing this relationship to us in this panel, right?
Yeah. No, I think it's if anything, it just creates an intensity between these two people locking eyes on each other for the first time. That it's going to be something, right? If it wasn't that these people were going to be friends, it's that they're going to be the archest of enemies. It's going to be something going on here.
It's also what I also wrote down. It's also the first time Luffy and Zoro are in a panel together.
Ah, okay.
Up to this point,
cool.
Yeah, this is the very first one, which I'm pretty sure it is. Let me know if I'm wrong, but I think it is before this because they were looking at him from a wall, Because this is after everything went down. This is after Helmepo throws the little girl, steps on the rice ball. Before that, there was no opportunity for him to even be in the same space as Zoro.
Yeah. So. No, it's really cool. It's fun. I'm impressed you chose it. I think that is definitely one that would have made it in my top list when I was picking panels. And it didn't make the final cut, but that is a worthy panel battle. And all the tourists out there can let us know if they have their own favorite panel, or if they think one of us chose particularly poorly. I don't think either of us did this time. I would never be able to. It's kind of sad. I think any panel with a lot of negative space in a manga that has so much detail is always gonna be fine with me. I'm always gonna say that great pick.
Yeah, because it looks so cool and so different from what we're used to, essentially, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I guess that kind of does it for chapter 3, at least for us here at the Grand Line Tourists. This was fun. This was a fun week. This was a fun chapter.
Yeah.
I hope you're excited for the next one, Jacob.
Oh, definitely. I definitely want to see. It's I'm pretty sure my continuity of action is going to continue right from the last frame of this chapter to the next one, and I'm going to look for it because I'm excited. I really am getting into that stuff. It's whether or not this is the point of One Piece right now. It's teaching me that someone puts a lot of work into these panels, and if I just read too fast, I'm missing it. I got to enjoy the work, and I'm really liking this slowing down, which for me is something that I sometimes find hard to do in media. So totally digging it.
I agree. Well, Jacob, why don't you close out today's episode? Can you give me an onomatopoeia of what you think it sounds like when the straw hat hits the floating from the air from the last part of your panel and then landing on the dirt? And that's how we'll close out today's episode.
So we're gonna start with it's gonna come off of Luffy's head, and then it's gonna come down. So we got it. It's gonna go. Nice. Yeah, no, and also, I realized I don't know if I answered your question. Would an onomatopoeia, should that just be like one word? Like, would that be what you'd...
What did this sound good?
Then it could be like, whoosh.